We're live.
All right, and we're live, yes. As you are now, so once was I. Hey, everyone. This is Jack Mangan, Metal Hall of Fame. Yeah. And, well, I mean, first, before, we'll do a quick go-around. I don't know, Rich, you want to talk about yourself, your shirt, and who you are, and all that stuff?
I want to talk about your shirt.
I'm wearing Striker, a great new Canadian band. I'm a writer for Metal Asylum, Brave Words, the Metal Hall of Fame, and I contribute to Sea of Tranquility as well. And below myself, we have the man who probably wrote one of the most recognizable trademark bass lines for a song ever, right? Mr. Ellefson, Dave Ellefson.
He actually didn't write it. He played it.
Right.
Played it. Oh, he didn't write it.
The thing of it is for whatever reason that the signal's cutting out, so I only heard half of what you said. So sure, whatever you said. I heard Ellefson. So like I guess it's me.
I gave you credit for the bass line in, of course, Peace Sells, but Tom said that you didn't write it, you just played it.
Yeah, I mean, Mustaine wrote the song. He wrote the tune. It's weird. If you read the new Rust in Peace book, it's interesting how there's a pretty good, accurate tie-in. Marty Friedman talks about it, about how songs were put together in the room. And that was one of those songs where, like, I was the only guy that had a car, right? In the band, right? So I would always drive us around. So I'm taking Dave. We were living with the guy who co-produced and engineered The Killing Is My Business record. His name was Carrot Fay, and we were living up in Laurel Canyon. And we were all on hard times. So I think Carrot was actually sponging. He'd hooked up a cable to get, electricity or something from the neighbor, right? Because we were living by candlelight, right? And that's just how it rolled back then. So, but I remembered I had this BC Rich Eagle bass, and I'd ripped the frets out of it. And Dave was playing it, and he's kind of coming up with a riff. And he said, "Here, Junior, try this riff." So I played it and didn't think too much more about it. And then we went to rehearsal. And one day when we were driving to rehearsal, we'd usually drive from Laurel Canyon, if you know LA at all, Laurel Canyon. Then we'd go up to Pasadena, pick up Gar. And then we'd go to downtown, below downtown, a little area called Vernon. There was a rehearsal facility there. Basically, it was an old brewery that was turned into a rehearsal facility. And we would drive that route many times all the time, right? So one night Dave says to me, he's on the drive, he's silence in the car or listening to the radio or something. And he looks over at me, he goes, "What do you think about Peace Sells, but who's buying?" I was like, "Cool. Sounds good." Turn the radio back up, keep driving, not think anything more about it. Right. And so, I guess the day that the bass riff came up, at Carrot's house, we went to rehearsal that night. Same route, Laurel Canyon, Gar's house, Pasadena, down to Vernon. And we got in the room and we started working that up. And Dave was really, playing that riff, played it on bass. And then it was really kind of a guitar riff, bass riff, whatever. And that song just came together within like an hour or so. Gar just started playing a groove. Chris jumped in, kind of started playing with Dave. And, it was one of those kind of verse, chorus songs, which was very unlike a Megadeth composition, because most of the stuff was pretty progressive. And it would take sometimes months to write the stuff because it would be, one riff, two riffs, and then we'd walk away from it and work on another song and come back a few days later to that song. And, okay, let's add this. So these songs would take months to write. But Peace Sells wrote itself right there in the room. And all of us playing it together helped it come together. And I remember then Dave sang it. He wrote the lyric and then came in and sang it. And that might have been a rehearsal or two later. It might have even been the same night. I can't remember. But I remember, then at the end, there's the vamped chorus, Peace Sells, but who's buying? Peace Sells, but who's buying? So my natural thing growing up as a Van Halen fan and Michael Anthony fan was always to jump in and sing the high harmony, kind of that third or fifth higher, right? So as Dave's singing, "Peace Sells, but who's buying?" I would go, "Peace sells, but who's buying?" Right? I call it the Michael Anthony harmony, right? And so, there's my shout out to the mighty Van Halen and our hero Eddie, all that he gave us. And so anyway, that's the story of that. So we should probably introduce Thom Hazaert now that I was going
to say, though, You ripped off the MTV News intro though with that bass line. I don't know if you knew
I
that.
did. Yeah, we ripped that right off. Complete
Yeah.
plagiarism. Yeah. Funny, it's funny. So we get signed. So that rehearsal room, we would often live there. Me and Dave and Chris Poland would take turns living in that place, depending on either who was in the doghouse or homeless, right, at home, right? And so, in fact, I joined the gym. Me and Tom were just there. It's now where the Live Nation building is on Hollywood Boulevard, Hollywood and La Brea. There used to be a fitness center there called Holiday Health Spa, and I actually joined it. It was like $100 for the year, just so I'd have a place to take a shower, right? It's when we were, and it was right down the street from where me and Dave met there on 1736 North Sycamore back in June of '83. And so that rehearsal place, so fast forward, we then get signed to Capitol Records. We get a little advance, and our manager says, look, go, you guys need to get an apartment. Why don't you get like, a 3-bedroom, 3 of you guys can live there. We'll call it the ranch, the band headquarters, right? So I go out and I get this apartment for us. And it was very nice. It was in Echo Park, just right up the street from, Silver Lake, where Silver Lake was kind of a dump back then. Now it's like the hipster spot of LA, of Hollywood.
Yeah.
And me and Chris, I remember because Chris was washing the dishes, right? It was like middle of the afternoon. Chris was washing the dishes. And in the background, we always had MTV on, right? Just in the background. And we heard it. It was like MTV News. You heard it here, right? And Chris was like, holy shit. Was that P Cells? Was that our song? and it was like, wow, I think it was. And it was just kind of one of those moments that went by so quick. And then the next time it came around, they'd alternate it with that that DJ scratch, MTV News. You heard it here, right? So it was like, well, God, maybe it wasn't our song, And then as time would go by, it would play more and more. And who knew? I guess what the hell? We had a fan inside of MTV that played that song for us.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, we all. By the way, every metalhead in the world had that same experience where the first time we heard it, went, wait a minute. That's
Okay, good. So it wasn't just us.
But so yeah, we do have Thom Hazaert. I think he stepped away for a second. So I'll just say really quickly, I'm Jack Mangan. I'm rocking the Overkill shirt. We are doing Am I Evil? We're in the last week of our Indiegogo. We're doing the Am I Evil graphic novel. We're 86% to our goal. So if you're watching this, you like Am I Evil? You might have heard the song before if you're fans of these guys and us. But yeah, it's a great song. We're doing the comic. We have Diamond Head's permission. So yeah, please do support us at Indiegogo.
Can we be in your comic?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
I know the song as you look behind there. That was us playing it with the big 4. I know the first verse and chorus in the intro.
I was gonna say you guys might have heard the song before.
Yeah.
But yeah, and by the way, Brian Tatler is an awesome guy. We've gotten to know him. Like I'm not gonna call him a friend, but he's been so gracious and
we actually talked for a while about putting out some Diamond Head records, and then something happened that we didn't do it. But for a while we were actually talking to those guys about and there are some complications at another deal and pre-existing and whatever. But we love those guys, man. We love Diamond Head. They're great guys. And
one of the big 4 shows we did, I think it was at Nebworth. They brought Brian Tatler up, and I remember James Hetfield, on the mic addressing to the fans, just saying, this guy here, many of you may not know him. His name is Brian Tatler, guitarist, founder of Diamond Head, and without him, we would not all be here. Metallica wouldn't exist. This arrangement of Anthrax, Megadeth, Slayer on the stage right this minute. We're just getting ready to play Am I Evil, and it was pretty cool when he said it, because you think about the depth of that, and when I met Dave back in 1983, I grew up in Minnesota, so Def Leppard, Motorhead, Venom. Started to hear about Tigers of Pantang, Sweet Savage, the band that Vivian Campbell came from. And of course Diamond Head, and Diamond Head was kind of in the earlier days probably neck and neck with Def Leppard as far as being the 2 kind of cool new bands to come out of, well, and along with Iron Maiden, I guess too, Iron Maiden, Motorhead, to come out of England that looked like they were set for the big time. And probably Def Leppard and Diamond Head, because of just their songs were a bit more melodic and kind of more mainstream. And for whatever reason, Diamond Head just didn't quite get that obviously that big mainstream success. like Def Leppard did. But you know, I remember Dave had the Diamond had picture discs. I mean, he was well steeped in it, and obviously this was 6 weeks after he was out of Metallica, so you know, he'd just been around James and Lars and Cliff and that, and so but very, very knowledgeable and in that world. And I mean, he hung on every word that Sean Harris would say. I remember listening to an interview. There was like an interview that was back in the days where like you'd have a side B of the vinyl would be an entire interview, and we have some of those too. Where
I have a couple Megadeth ones where it's all an interview.
Exactly. It's all an interview. And one of them was Sean Harris. And I remember Dave would listen to that and just, hang on every word that he said. Like he was kind of his, he was a mentor to him, and, we played Wembley Arena. It was the last show of the Clash of the Titans tour, 1990, which was Slayer, Megadeth, Testament, Suicidal Tendencies. And we invited Sean up to play. I think he played It's Electric, I think is the track that he played with us. And it was cool. It was weird because our fans didn't know who he was, and, we were a kind of, I guess, a half generation behind Diamond Head, but our fans were very young, the thrash fans that were coming to our shows. They're very young and they didn't have a clue who he was. And this was in England, we kind of thought there would be some sort of big resounding hometown cheer for Sean, but it was,
nope.
It was weird. Nope. It was
Diamond who?
Yeah, it was. It was. So it's great that, Metallica over the years, would cover their songs, of course, Am I Evil, and, give those props to them, so.
Yeah, agreed. And by the way, Sean Harris has also given us permission. I haven't interacted with him much aside from a few emails, but yeah, I get a great read from him too. Yeah. But Tom, David is right. We haven't introduced you yet. We can't give you, we got to talk about you and your hat and hopefully you have more cool shit to show us.
Right,
thanks for coming back.
Thank you. Thanks for having me back. And I brought a friend this time.
A friend who actually lives right down the street from Jack. As it turns out, we're both in Scottsdale.
I told him that last time. I'm like, you guys should. Well, I'm going to be out there next week too. I don't know if you saw this, Jack, but me and David are doing an in-store for Record Store Day at Asylum Records in Glendale on the 24th.
Yeah, that's exciting. I've definitely got questions about that. I don't want to, I want to make sure that Rich, I think you had some questions loaded up. So I don't know.
Make sure I get properly introduced first.
That's true.
Wearing
Yes.
a Def Leppard hat. I don't know if you know this, but we ripped off our album cover from Def Leppard.
No way. So, you thief. You thieves.
We had no idea. We'd never seen it before. We didn't know it existed.
The nasty comments you guys are ripping off the that's the Def Leppard album cover. It's like, oh, it is? It's like I said, Def Leppard was probably one of the most influential bands to me as 15-year-old David Ellefson.
Which is why we did
it. Which is exactly why we did it.
Don't get this album. Like the whole album is those songs that influenced David and myself. And we did a whole record paying homage and tribute. A lot of this is stuff that David covered in bands before Megadeth back in Minnesota with Greg Handovit. So that's what this whole record is about paying homage to that time. And we came up with that concept of the sort of photorealistic modern interpretation of the Def Leppard On Through the Night image, but clearly it's not a Les Paul in the back of the truck. And the funny thing is everything on it's different. It's a different sky, a different moon, a totally different truck, but David's bass in the back of it. It's just the same concept, but it's just an homage to that record and that time. And I feel like it really, the whole packaging just kind of emotes that time for me. And we just thought, what better way to pay tribute to that and Def Leppard? And look, one of my favorite bands of all time. And, I have an office full of, I have a Hysteria wallet right here if anybody needs one,
Well, the only other option was just to not have no cover.
Yeah. So instead, we decided to cover a cover.
Cover to cover. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, even the cover's a cover. That was kind of and it's so funny because it's such a brilliant, cool concept. And it just blew, but people don't get it. But that's because they don't understand the record. They don't understand what it is. Like when people get it, they go, "Oh my God, that's brilliant!" And I think it's awesome. Melody Myers did the art, and she's incredible. I can't believe she pulled it off. I said, "You know what I want? I always just pull these crazy ideas out of my ass," and she just does it. I go, "You know what I want to do? I want to do a parody homage to the On Through the Night cover." And then in like 2 days, it was done. And the The longest process of the whole thing was getting the fucking bass to look right. We spent like a week getting the bass to look right, and then we got it. Now it's amazing, you know.
And I'm literally in the other room in my dining room with my bass, which I have here. I was in there with my iPhone underneath taking pictures.
No, dude,
I
have mine.
Angle of how it comes off the truck, you know, and taking on pictures underneath. So
I have one of Dave's bases here too. I was laying on my back on the couch on the floor trying to take pictures up, make my kids come take the pictures. It took like 1,000 pictures, and she put so much work into that, and it was just I'm so proud of it and the way it turned out and the whole packaging for the album. You know, again, that whole record is nothing but a love letter to the music that, you know, inspired me and David to do what we do, and a lot of other people, a lot of the other guys that play on this record, Charlie Benante and Doro and Frank and Troy from Tesla and Al Jorgensen and all these, you know, cool guys got down, Dave Lombardo, all these amazing people got down with it. And I think they really, you know, Jason McMaster, Mark Slaughter, you know, Satchel from Steel Panther. I think they all have the same reverence for these songs and these artists that we covered on this record, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely.
But there's no Diamond Head on there, just so you know.
Forget it.
Since we're going to talk about Diamond Head, I just want to let you know there isn't any on there.
We have to do no cover too, because again, we have to do a Quiet Riot song. Like, there's a couple of things that I really wanted to do that we just couldn't. It's already 19 songs, but Quiet Riot, I would love to have done a Van Halen song. You know, there's just a lot of shit. So we'll do no cover 2 eventually, and it'll just be all the stuff we couldn't do on the first one.
Yeah,
cool,
nice. An album cover, somebody over a diving board then for the second one, like High and Dry. No, I'm kidding. So, Rich, go ahead. I know you got some. You wanted to ask something.
Well, a couple. But speaking of no cover, if you could cover a Megadeth song, what would you guys do? But it can't be a hit. It's got to be a deep cut. What would you guys want to do?
Well, when we play live, and that a lot of that's me, because David's like, you know. Me, I'm a big Megadeth fan. Like, Megadeth has been my favorite band since I was 13 years old. You know what I mean? So we do, you know, last year we played on the Mega Cruise and we did a whole set of Megadeth stuff. You know, sometimes we do some Megadeth stuff in our live set, but we do Go to Hell. We do Liar and Hook and Mouth, which people just die over. Because we play stuff that Megadeth never plays. Liar, Hook and Mouth, Anarchy in the UK, The Conjuring. You know what I mean? It's like when we throw in Megadeth stuff, again, it's kind of obscure B-side stuff or out, you know, stuff from So Far So Good, So What, you know, stuff that people that Megadeth doesn't really play. I like to, you know, honestly, I usually kind of pick that stuff and it's really, we like to get deep in the catalog and play stuff that Megadeth really doesn't play, you know?
Yeah. What about you, Dave? What would you pick if you could cover yourself for the album for part 2?
For a Megadeth song, you mean?
Something deep, something you dust off. What would you want to do?
Honestly, you know what I would do? I would do something off Kill 'Em All. I'd do like Jump in the Fire. Because to me, and here's the thing, it wouldn't even be Kill 'Em All. It would be
the demo, No Life to Leather.
Yeah, it would be off No Life to Leather. Because to me, that's my Metallica. And I say that because when I met Dave, there was no Kill 'Em All. They were recording it at the time. And so he used to play in the apartment there in Sycamore. He would play the No Life to Leather demo. And I remember the day that the Kill 'Em All album showed up at our apartment. And it was like haunting silence as it got ushered in and placed on the turntable. And Greg Handevitt, my good friend Greg, we moved to LA together, and he was in Megadeth with us in the very beginning. In fact, he started playing guitar with Dave, and then Dave said, "Dude, you got to lose that bass player guy you got, and you need to get Ellefson in here." And then the three of us started playing with our drum. Then we got our drummer Dijon Carruthers. And for a moment, there was a singer named Laura Kane that Dave was kind of, you know, had around for a bit. And that was when he was kind of kicking around the idea of calling the band Fallen Angel. And then Greg said, you know, once we were all in the room together, Greg says, no, he said, why don't we call the band Megadeth? Because that was this first song that Dave wrote after Metallica. And which became Set the World Afire. It got retitled. But like those... You know, we always, I think, in rehearsal, we would play Mechanics. That seemed to be the one song that kind of, from the beginning, you know, because fans were asking Dave, like, hey, are you going to play any of your songs from Metallica with Megadeth? And as Dave tells the story, Mechanics is a song that he had pre-Metallica. So he's held that one dear. And it's, I just remember like UFO, the album Mechanics, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And, but one of the other songs that I really liked off the early Metallica stuff is Jump in the Fire, and Dave wrote it. And it's just a great riff. I just loved it. It's just a fun, I probably still know it. Wow, my guitar's at nah. My guitar's horribly out of tune. It's in a drop tuning, sorry. But it's just a fun riff to play. So if anything, I would do that one. People forget I'm actually in Megadeth, so I can't really cover a Megadeth song because I don't know if it's considered covering it if I'm actually in the band. but yeah, Tom's right. I mean, he'll kind of fanboy on deep cuts, stuff that Megadeth hasn't played in many years for whatever reason. Maybe the vocal range is a little high. Just for whatever reason, that's his album. It's just for whatever reason, they're just not in the set. We have other songs we play.
Right.
So, I mean, Dawn Patrol always works, but for me, I personally wouldn't put a Megadeth song on a Ellefson solo record.
Well, the cool thing is, that's funny, man. So David, kind of grew up in Minnesota playing a lot of these songs, and I grew up in Wisconsin in bands covering these same bands, Def Leppard and Twisted Sister, but we also did Megadeth, and we did, so I kind of grew up playing in bands in my barn and my garage, sort of playing the same shit like half a generation later, so it's kind of, we have these funny conversations like with the Def Leppard, the Def Leppard song, my era, I love the originals, the early stuff, but my era is like Pyromania and Hysteria, where David kind of cut his teeth on Through the Night, so we kind of just meet in the middle on some of the stuff where we like the same bands and we're influenced by the same bands, but just kind of half a generation removed from each other, because he's, a little older than me,
Like for Kiss, I would be Detroit Rock City. Tom would probably be Crazy Nights. And that means we'd have to meet somewhere in the middle with like, I Was Made for Loving You.
Yeah.
That I want to hear.
Which is funny. We played shows with Kiss recently, and it's funny. All the ladies, of course, love that song. They just that unanimously that seems to be like one of the female favorites from Kiss, and then they play it. And even though I didn't buy Dynasty, I
fucking love Dynasty.
Kiss Alive 2 was my last Kiss record, and that of course was the Love Gun tour, and then that was it for me. And then we went into the 80s, which is Tom's era of Kiss. But, when they play I Was Made for Loving You live, it's amazing. I mean, it's a great song. It totally, I get why everybody likes it, I get it.
That's my jam.
But disco, you got to realize, so when I was growing up in that era in the 70s, right? So I'm learning to play bass. I'm in my bands, and we're trying to be as metal as we can, and the heaviest stuff. And Kiss was certainly part of that. But, so there's Kiss, the Sex Pistols, and disco, and as a bass player, you had to kind of you had to be kind of a closet disco fan because you could never let your buddies know you like disco, right? That just immediately shot in the head, right? But as a bass player, disco bass playing is phenomenal. It's so good. It's like a style of itself. Even if no matter what style you play, that disco playing is its own unique little subgenre, and it's so good. I see there's a woman, I forgot her name. She's Cindy, I think. She plays. You can see her on YouTube. Incredible. I mean, it's just effortless. She's just smiling and playing, and so I liked it. Michael Anthony, of course, kind of picked up a little bit of that because he had some of his chord movements. Some of his transitions in and out of some of the chord changes, he adds some of the some of the octave disco stuff in there, and of course Van Halen was, they were kind of coming out of the punk rock movement of LA, the disco thing of the 70s, and all that was surrounding them at that time too.
That's a good point. I would say John Deacon also. This guy who obviously had some disco influences. Queen. Yeah, there's definitely.
Yeah.
Well, I want to put it out there also. If everyone watching, jump in with some questions. We've got a limited time, so jump in if you have questions. Jump in, and we'll read them off to these guys, or maybe they can see them too. But I wanted to touch on a little bit of just go a little bit deeper into the bass. I mean, do you ever get did you? I guess you don't anymore. But did you ever get crap for being a pick bassist or?
Oh, weekend warrior, and in my opinion, not professional bass players give me shit about it all the time. And I say that because if you were a professional player, you would realize that while you don't maybe always have to use the plectrum, it is a desired tone, especially in the studio.
It's a totally different attack. It's a totally different.
Yeah.
Right.
You know.
Look, one of the most famous bass players that you've probably never heard of, Kaye. She's part of what drummer Hal Blaine called the Wrecking Crew, right? Which is this sort of ensemble of musicians in Los Angeles in the 60s and early 70s. They cut all the records. And it wasn't 4 or 5 of them. It was really about 60 of them. But Hal Blaine liked to call it the Wrecking Crew because it was like usually him on drums, Carol, who was really a guitar player, but then I guess one day got asked to play the Fender bass and in the union. So I'm a local 47 LA a musicians union card holder. And in order to play on those sessions and even many sessions in Nashville and New York, you have to be a union guy. And in the union registry, you know, they got everything, piccolo, saxophone, Fender bass is an instrument, not just bass guitar, Fender bass, right? So she was really an icon in that, and we've heard her on TV shows. I mean, probably things like the Brady Bunch, you know, all kinds of famous TV shows that she played on, and she always played with a pick. And she played on all the Beach Boys stuff. She talks about how Brian Wilson loved her bass playing, and even though he was a bass player, she played on all the Beach Boys records. She played his parts. So, and again, Sting, Phil Lynott, Paul McCartney. And what I find with the Gene Simmons and what I find with this is most of those bass players, like myself, also play guitar. And they probably write most of their things on guitar and they move them over to bass so they can easily go back and forth between bass and guitar. And I'm the same way. Thom was just out here at my house, a couple months ago, and we wrote like 4 songs in a night. and that's what I was just picking up guitars. Thom had my guitar. I'm picking up a bass. And it's just so easy, you know. At that point, I stopped thinking about, I got to be this bass player. It's fuck that. It's like you're just being a musician, playing the parts to write the tune. You're a composer, so you just grab anything and you write the part. And so for me, I'm way less of a bass snob, and I'm really not into that whole thing, quite honestly. The bass snob thing. I'm really more of a composer, a player, and a performer. You know, and I've been in the studio many times. And even recently, I was working on something with Thom, and I was playing with my fingers, and right away the engineer looks over and goes, "What'd you change?" And I said, "I'm playing it with my fingers." He goes, "Don't do that. Get the pick. It sounds better." I mean, like that, it's noticeable, you know, even on the Megadeth record.
But it was cool. I was watching him play with his fingers, and he did this kind of cool, almost Jeff Amenti thing in this one song. I'm like, it was kind of cool watching him play with his fingers. But yeah, it's a different way. When David Ellefson is in the studio and grabs a bass, I don't care what the bass is, I don't care what he's running through, and grabs that pick and starts playing, holy shit, it's David Ellefson, you know? And to me, that's such a part of his tone and his style and his sound. I mean, to me, it's instrumental in the Megadeth sound, the pick style.
Yeah, I agree. Obviously, again, with the Overkill shirt, obviously I like bassists with picks. I like, you know, both. It's 2 different dimensions. But
Dude, Didi's got an amazing tone, man. I mean, there's another guy that, you know, honestly, it's funny. Blitz and Didi, in my opinion, are the defining sound of, of Overkill. And of course, they're, I think, the only 2 remaining members, of course. So they are kind of the sound. But especially now, maybe more than ever, his plectrum playing and his tone and his parts are not that easy to play. I had to learn an Overkill song, I think, for a Metal Allegiance show. And it was interesting how learning it, I was like, you know, and Didi and I, we kind of grew up together, you know, in our genre. And he does some things that are very clever, you know, just they're simple, but they're uniquely his for sure.
All right, great. So I got a really quick out of the comments. We've got, Deshaun Lozol says, write more songs. And Dina Marie Burgess says, Dave, how are you staying in practice without gigging? Your voice sounds great right now.
Oh, thank you. Well, a couple things. Part of that's due to my new vocal zone. No. Shameless plug. You know, it's funny. I do vocal warm-ups. I have a vocal warm-up here that we actually use backstage with Megadeth. And I will do that. When I know, like today, I did a podcast earlier. I've got this one. I've got a couple more things tonight. When I know I'm just going to be doing a lot of talking, I do vocal warm-ups because it strains the voice, you know. And certainly for singing, of course, before going on stage. But I gotta say, when me and Thom have worked on so much stuff, man. We were recording an Ellefson album of original material. I went to Nashville to cut the Megadeth record, and that was obviously, you know, intense, and I knew it would be, so I was practiced and prepared for that. And then I came home, and me and Thom literally within a couple of days started this no cover record, which is 18 more songs.
19.
19. And then I worked on another record out in LA with Mike Heller from Raven. He and I were working on something together. And then I went over to Al Jorgensen's house. So, I mean, I really worked on 4 records in like the course of about 4 weeks, 4 or 5 weeks. And I was sitting there just going, God dang, man, my chops are freaking good. I mean, I could tell just even me picking up a bass, it was just like effortless, you know. But and also my ears were really in tune. You know, when you're in the studio all the time, you really, you know, your ears become very, you know, keyed into stuff in a really acute way. And then, you know, kind of during August, September, Thom and I got more into kind of promotion world and some of that stuff. And so I wasn't picking up the bass every day. I'm going in the studio tomorrow to cut a track for Cleopatra Records. They asked me to play on something, so I'm going to cut something for them. And so, you know, so this last week I've been starting to practice a little bit again. And part of it is just the enjoyment of digging out the no cover songs that me and I let Thom put the set list together for the Ellefson live show. And he's good at it and he knows the flow. And so I'm basically learning whatever Thom sends me. You know, he sends me the set list. And so I'm just ripping down those, and it's fun to, you know, to start practicing again and just kind of relearning. Yeah, and a lot of it isn't so much learning the songs because I know them by heart because I'm a fan.
And a lot of it's like muscle memory too.
It is. It's muscle memory. Yeah, just kind of getting your endurance, you know, getting your stamina. And I think that's the same thing with singing. You know, when it's one thing to sing some songs, it's another to get up there and for an hour just kill it on every song and not be winded. It's kind of like a runner. If you're going to run the 5 mile, you better be able to run 10 miles so you can kick ass in the 5 mile, you know?
I know. And that's literally where I am right now. We haven't played on stage in a fucking year, you know, literally since we did the Mega Cruise and then we went to Europe. I mean, we haven't played on stage in a year. So I'm kind of getting to the mode now where I'm refreshing myself on the songs and figuring out how I'm going to sing what and what I'm going to do. And obviously there's all the logistical stuff, the merchandise and the travel and all. But again, I'm kind of, as the vocalist, I'm kind of starting to get into that mode now too, where I'm having to take care of my throat and do warm-ups and get ready to go on stage and run around like a psychopath for an hour plus every night. And, you know, so that's where I am.
Yeah. All right, I got questions for Rich. I gotta let you jump in. I don't want to step on you again like I did last week.
That's all right. That's cool. So you guys have the Ellefson films, and I was looking that up, and I see you guys got something called Dwellers in the works. Is that coming out? Can you tell us maybe a little bit about the production company and what this film's about, and what you guys are working on with that?
Sure,
our friend. Yeah, go ahead, Thom. Why don't you fill him in?
Yeah, like our friend Drew Fortier is a director and an actor. He was in her name is Krista, and a bunch of kind of cool indie horror movies. And he put it together, directed it. It's like a kind of a found footage horror film. I mean, it's fun. Me and David are in it. We kind of cameo. And I've been kind of foraying into some animation stuff. I partnered with an animation studio, Johnny Brothers Creative, and we've been doing some animated videos and some animated films. And yeah, David and Drew, David can talk about this. Him and Drew have gone out and done some promotional appearances for Dwellers and stuff like that too, that David could probably speak to as well.
Well, it's funny that I did. I participated in the Mad Monster Horror Con here in Phoenix last weekend, and really great brand. And they've been trying to, you know, kind of keep things going. So it was cool the way they did it. It was socially distanced and a limited number of tickets, but it was a really good show. And I looked in my, I have like a little Square account, so if people buy things at the table. And I looked in the Square account. The last time I used it was October 2019, and I forgot that was when Drew and I did an appearance at the Niagara Falls HorrorCon, and that was right after the Mega Cruise. I did the HorrorCon in Niagara Falls, and then Thom and I went right over and we did our show with KK Downing at Steel Mill, and then did a tour of Italy and Switzerland, and that's how long it's been since most of the stuff has been opened up. But it was cool to do. When you go to a convention, obviously it's great to be hired in as a celebrity, like I am. But it's nice to also bring something to the table, and walking in with a film, and to help kind of usher that in as we did with Dwellers, we did a Q&A, and we showed a bit of the trailer. And now, like Thom said, he's getting into some other animation stuff. It's nice to bring something to the party. And have content that you're contributing to the genre.
Is that out? Is it coming? Do you know when it's coming out, or is it out?
Probably next year. I mean, it was going to come out this year, and obviously the whole pandemic thing they had to do some final shooting and some stuff. And I mean, like everything else, it just kind of got fucked by it'll come out in 2021.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
All right.
And do you guys have anything else lined up aside from that, or do you have just that for now?
Just kind of that. And again, we've been kind of doing I've been producing some animated and kind of co-directing some animated videos, and we have some other animation projects sort of under the banner we're partnering on. We actually, something we should touch on, we actually just we're partnering with a big book distributor, and we're launching Ellefson Books, which we announced earlier last year that I'm writing a memoir with Chris Poland, and that's going to come out through Ellefson Books. But now we actually did a full-on distribution deal. David with Drew wrote like a fiction novel that's going to come out, sort of a rock and roll Jack Reacher sort of thing called the Sledge Chronicles. So that's the other cool thing, is we kind of, launched we're launching the Ellefson Books imprint. We have some other memoirs we're talking to people about. So look, I mean, we just don't like to get stagnant. We just keep moving, and we keep pulling these crazy ideas out of our ass, and then I just go figure out how to make them reality, and that's sort of what we've done for 6 years now. David, one of us will go, hey, let's do this, and I'll just go figure out how.
Yeah. And it's interesting, a lot of this stuff, kind of like the record label. When Thom, when we were first kind of just partnering up on stuff, I guess it was 2016, I think, or 15 or 16, I guess, and we started EMP Label Group, and then relaunched Combat Records and stuff. A lot of our friends were going, man, I need an outlet to put a record out. And so we were able to offer that. Same thing happened with the film division, offering away, because people are like, man, I got this film, I got this content, and what do I do with it? And same now with the book thing, we've got people coming to us left and right with memoirs and books, and hey, I think I might want to put something out. And I think I know myself, I think Thom probably feels the same way. Nothing is more just disheartening than when you work really hard on either making an album, you write a book, you've got a film, whatever it may be, and you can't get it out to the public. And yeah, you can put something on Facebook or stick it on YouTube.
You can throw it on Spotify, but it's just not the same.
It's just not the same. It doesn't, there's something that artistically, obviously you want as many people to see it. And there's a validation, just as an artist, there's a validation that when it's been sort of deemed label worthy, or film company worthy, and you know what, if that's just a sort of a stamp of approval that we can give to things. And, Thom's great at blowing things up in the media and the press and really getting a big look for things. That goes a long way to just, again, as an artist, feeling some validation for all the time and effort you put into something.
Well, and it is. And the other cool thing is, look, we have, we've kind of slowed the label down as we're focused, but, we just put out this great record from a band called Supreme Unbeing, who are actually, it's really cool. They're kind of like a metal gorillas. All the videos are animated, and they're really great. And we put out They Might Be Zombies. We've got some kind of cool younger bands. But yeah, that's the thing, is we've built this, and The Loyal Order, we just, put that out. But we've built this massive promotion channel between David's stuff and Combat and EMP, we've built these massive promotion channels, and even through the podcasts and the live streams we do, and so we can kind of bring that to the table. And David, our social media now is like almost 2 million people. So we've kind of worked to almost be our own little self-sustaining news outlet / promotion channel, and it's been really cool and rewarding to be able to partner with some bands and offer that. And again, I think we're pretty good at blowing shit up, and it gets harder and harder all the time, man. Bands, as long as bands come out with a reasonable expectation, and that is my thing as the guy who kind of runs the labels, to make sure bands have a reasonable expectation. It's 2020. It's not easy to do this shit. You know what I mean? It's just, you can only take it so far most of the time, but we definitely do our damnedest to take it as far as we can.
Wow. That's great answers, you guys. I was gonna say, not many people are winning at 2020, but in spite of literally dying this year and coming back from the dead, you guys are two of the people who are winning 2020. Maybe Mike Portnoy and you guys are some of the people who are actually killing it here.
Charlie Benante is killing it too, man. Yeah, give it up for Charlie, man. He's everywhere.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, that's great. But so I was going to ask, I guess. So how did this union, you guys, come together? How did David and Thom, how did you guys kind of form this friendship and partnership?
You want it or me?
No, go ahead. I want to hear your version.
All right. Well, if this is actually all covered in our book, More Life with Death, if anybody wants to go buy it. But so like me and David, we met. David used to work at PV, and I was a manager, and I think Chimera, some of my bands used PV. So that was when I first met Dave, and I totally fanboyed out because I was such a big Megadeth fan. And fast forward probably 10 years, and I was directing and producing some special features for Scream Factory. I did some stuff on People Under the Stairs and Army of Darkness, and then they were doing Shocker. So I was like, dude, you have to let me do something about the soundtrack. So Red Shirt Pictures, Michael Felsher, let me direct and produce a 30-minute documentary about the Shocker soundtrack. It had Bruce Kulick in it. David was in it, Kane Roberts, Jason McMaster, Desmond Child. So it was cool. And so through that, me and David kind of connected. It's like, what have you been doing? He's like, well, I'm producing bands. And I'm like, me too. And, and he was talking about the label thing. And that was literally Megaforce that EMP started out as an imprint to Megaforce. And David, the first conversation me and David had was like, oh, well, Missy from Megaforce just offered me this imprint label to put out my stuff. And I'm like, well, I've been running labels for a decade. If you need any help. And it just kind of blossomed. I hired David to, mix some tracks or produce some tracks on the Arising Chaos record that I was producing at the time, which ended up being one of the first things we put out on EMP with Dollskin and Green Death. And those were kind of the three that started it all. And through that, it just kind of built. Me and David built a relationship, and eventually I became his manager, and we put up more and more records and built EMP and then Combat and then the coffee company. And it just was a giant shit snowball from there on out.
I have anything to add to that, David? I don't know about shit snowball. No. I don't know if that's a compliment, but
I got nothing to add to that.
So I know our time's limited. I don't, Rich, what do you got? I think you got more questions.
I
right?
got a quick one for Dave. Do you remember when Megadeth? I don't know if you guys were out promoting Peace Cells or So Far, but did you do a record in store in New Jersey at a small record store? I don't know if it was Vintage Vinyl before it became Vintage Vinyl. Do you remember that?
Sure. I don't know where. I mean, we probably did. We probably did. I mean, we used to do so many in stores. We did every promotional thing that was ever asked of us. We never said no to anything. And I think that's probably where my work ethic comes, that, we do the same thing here with, with everything that we do. Tom's walking away. With everything that we do, here, and it's, you got to just say yes to everything, and I don't know where Vintage Vinyl is, and pardon me for not knowing that. But again, we haven't done that many in stores recently because that has kind of dried up a little bit, In fact, that's one of the last ones that.
This was like, God, it must have been mid 80s. Like I said, it must have been around Peace Cells or So Far. And it was a small record store, but I forgot if it was the beginning of Vintage Vinyl, and then they moved to their bigger store in South Jersey.
Yeah. Probably. I mean, it sounds right. Like I said, we did everything. Slip disc records. I mean, we did all. Then again, we started doing some of the bigger ones like Peaches down in the South. Out here, Zia Records, Tower Records. All the bigger ones. As the band got bigger and bigger, we would do. And then Best Buy. I mean, I remember here in Phoenix, sitting there literally for 2.5, 3 hours, signing 3,000 or 4,000 people's records as they came through, with the release. I guess it was probably Cryptic Writings. So, but it all started at, the vintage vinyls and those kind of places,
Yeah.
Speaking of which,
seen the flyer.
You guys want to see what I got yesterday from Chuck Beeler? Look at this.
Oh, wow.
Oh, the new album. Very nice. That's cool.
New album, Peace Sells, but Who's Buying? In stores now.
Cool.
Very cool. Yeah, it looks like we just lost David for a minute. I don't know if he had to run or he's back.
I had to go grab my my charger. I realized my computer was going to fall asleep.
I did want to give you guys a chance to talk about you guys are doing some shows, so I want to hear all about that. That's kind of exciting, and I want to hear about that. And if anyone's nervous, if like, well, shit, I want to go see them, but how's it going to go? Like, tell us about your shows coming up. And
well, I'll let Thom talk about it, but let me just say this. Obviously, we don't want to get sick either, so it's not like we're just walking into this thinking like some people we know who think we're bulletproof and, the rules don't apply to us. I mean, we are not that at all. So,
after this year, if anything, I know I'm far from bulletproof,
Yeah. So
that's not what I was implying at all.
Yeah. I'll let Thom take it from there though, because he
Look, we're doing 3 shows at the end of this month in Houston, Slidell, basically Halloween weekend in Houston, Slidell, Louisiana, San Antonio, Slidell, Louisiana, and Houston with Saliva for A Killer's Confession, The Crowned. I mean, they're kind of big festivals, and look, we're not really in control of. We already said, look, we need to keep those are all half capacity or less, and that was kind of, I insisted on that. I'm like, look, we kind of, we're gonna just be as safe as possible. We're doing 4 release shows in the Midwest for no cover, Pekin, Illinois, and this is like the weekend the record comes out, like the 18th through the 21st. Pekin, Illinois, Indianapolis, Chicago, and Green Bay, my hometown. We're doing a CD release that we're kind of wrapping it up with on the 21st. But look, some of these are like 25 capacity, man. We just want to go out and see our fans, but we want to keep them as safe. We just printed a bunch of killer masks we're going to have on our merch table. And, we're going to just encourage everybody to stay as distant and safe. The meet and greets will be a little different. I mean, they're definitely we're going to try and do meet and greets, but again, they're going to be 10 feet away, throwing their shit on the table. Pictures are going to be kind of, at a distance. Everybody's going to have to wear masks for the meet and greet. I mean, we're going to wear masks for the meet and greet. I mean, we're taking it seriously, but at the same time, we're like, look, we got to go out and bring this record to people. And again, I feel like, and me and Bumblefoot were on the phone. Bumblefoot's coming out with us for all of them, and he's the other guitar player in the Ellefson band. When he's available, he plays on all the records. But obviously, his touring availability usually is out with Sons of Apollo or Asia or one of the other 100 bands he's in. But we're blessed to have him for these. And we talked about the other day, and we're both excited about it. Like we feel like we're kind of the guinea pigs going out, and we're going to give people a little beacon of normalcy and light in a really rough year. But again, we're going to be as cautious and careful as possible in doing so. That's all we can do is encourage people to be safe, lead by example, and try and keep ourselves as safe as we can. And but again, some of these are very limited capacity. Literally, I think one of them is 25 people. You know what I mean? So they're going to be very intimate shows, very, but again, as careful and safe as humanly possible.
Cool. Yeah, great answer.
Thank you.
All right, Rich, fire away.
Well, what kind of when you do the shows, is it going to be all focused on the solo stuff? It's going to be all like those covers, or are you going to do something different?
No, I mean, look, the Texas shows and the Midwest shows are going to be slightly different. I mean, like they're, we're definitely putting some stuff up no cover. We're playing over now in Simple Truth and Vultures and the Ellefson stuff, and probably a couple other surprises. You know what I mean? But yeah, we play a little bit from everything, a little bit from David's history and catalog. But it's funny, this is the first set list we've ever done. Again, we've talked about it. I mean, a lot of our shows before we'd play a lot of Megadeth stuff, and then we'd work in our stuff, and now we have more and more of our stuff, and it's really the first set list I've done where it's like, holy shit, we have records of material to choose from. Granted, a bunch of it's covers and different things, but you'll definitely hear some stuff from no cover, and you'll definitely hear Vultures and Over Now and Simple Truth and all the Ellefson stuff that's been released, and some other things that we played in the past, but it's definitely a new set list, and a lot of these songs, Simple Truth, Over Now, a lot of this shit's never been played live. We've never played it. So these shows in Texas are literally we're going down there a couple of days early to rehearse because we've never played these songs live. So it's going to be interesting and fun to get out and really tear up some of this Ellefson shit that we've never done before, which I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay,
cool. Well, yeah, I guess one thing I want to touch on, both of you guys, I've seen it. You guys are both really just you're proud to be dads, and it shows through in everything you guys represent. And so how do you keep everything in balance between all the stuff we talked about? I mean, Coffee, Megadeth, Ellefson, everything, combat, everything, and being dads and being friends and all that stuff. How do you guys both keep the balance going?
It's funny you may say that, because I was actually just thinking about that today, like just kind of going down. My kids, my son, I'm employing him to help do some of the Ellefson Coffee business. When I was growing up, I just naturally worked on the farm for my dad. I mean, I was just naturally, you just grow up being part of the business. And I guess if you're Wolfgang Van Halen, it's the same thing. You just become part of the family business, My daughter's a very gifted musician, but has chosen to go into nursing. One day she came downstairs and she said, "Dad, I had a dream that you were telling me how hard the music business is, so I don't think I want to go into that because I want to have like a real life." And I said, "Good idea." So I'm always encouraging her, like, listen, you've got an incredible gift. You've got perfect pitch. I mean, she's a gifted player and singer, but I said, you need to find a place for that to come out, because you're going to get very frustrated if you're not doing music. Even if you're singing in church or singing at a coffee shop, you just make sure you keep that gift going, and who knows where that goes. But I mean, keeping this all together, it's nice. I like that my kids they're young adults now, and I think about where I was at and what I was doing when I was their age at 21 and 24. I wasn't calling home to Minnesota too much because I was taking a lot of drugs. We were forming Megadeth. We were rocking around the world. We were partying. We were being an 80s kick-ass thrash metal band, And usually when I'd call home, it was kind of the accountability check, especially my dad. He was very much he was a pretty strict disciplinarian kind of dad. And he didn't put up with any bullshit, and he would be real simple. He goes, "Well, when are you guys going to write some more mainstream songs so you can actually be successful?" And, he'd talk to Dave. He'd go, "You got to stop swearing on stage and treat your fans nice." And, and being very fatherly, and, Dave always respected my dad, because my dad, he would just look you in the eye and tell it like it is. So me being that, here at our house, fortunately, look, my wife's been able to be home raising our kids, and I'm very blessed to have that, because that's a very similar model of how I grew up. Dad worked on the farm, mom raised the kids, and I've been able to do that. And I feel that very blessed. My kids have been the direct result of that. Now it's kind of a new phase, and so everything reinvents. The music business reinvents, your kids get older, they reinvent, and they become their own people. I remember my dad telling me when I went to LA and I came back home. So I moved out there in like May 83 and I came back home December 83 for Christmas. And very much had a different look, because I was in Megadeth and, skinny jeans. And, I had a different look for being back in the farm in Minnesota in December. Cut off shirt, Vic Rattlehead on, and my dad said to me, he goes, when your kids leave home and then they get to have their own life and they come back, they're always your kids, but now they're adult kids, and I remember how he said it to me. I was like, God, that's right. So I have to look at my kids like that. They're adult kids, they're not just little kids anymore. They're adult kids. They're having their own experiences. They're starting to live on their own. And, so, it's just, it's interesting to just kind of see everything keep growing forward,
Yeah, and for me, I'm a single dad, so it's a little bit different, but my kids are kind of at that same age too, where they're in their, they're, teenagers, and kind of, my younger daughter, Jenna, is at the point where she's stealing all my old metal shirts, and I see her and she's wearing my Skid Row and Cinderella shirts, and I go up in her room. But one of my proudest moments was when she came up, she said, "Dad, can I have some of your Iron Maiden tapestries to hang in my room?" So again, they're kind of at that age where they're discovering, the other cool thing is, so I watched The Dirt, I let Jenna read the book, and then we watched the movie, and now she's like, "Dad, I made all my friends watch it," and I went upstairs the other day to take a shower, and I heard her in her room watching The Dirt, and now she's obsessed with Motley Crue. It's like, it's cool. It's like you have these cool little, now it was I kind of basically shut my career down for 10 years and did nothing to raise my kids, and that was sort of why there was like a lull. And then as my kids kind of get old enough where I didn't have to do that's when things got more active and picked up again. And now my kids are a little older, and they can kind of, they're little adults, so I'm kind of letting them, it's kind of finding that balance with what decisions to let them make. But again, my kids are all cool. They all have piercings and, wear rock shirts, and, I have to yell at them for stealing my clothes. You know what I mean? So it's cool, man. I love my kids. I love being a dad. When you become a dad, I never intended to have kids. When you do, it kind of starts to define your existence. And for me, it totally does, man. I love my kids, and they're the greatest thing that ever, that ever happened to me. And they're awesome.
Yeah. I know my son, Roman, he's like the keeper of the facts, so he's like my go-to Wikipedia. We were driving home from California last month, and we were listening to everything from Ted Nugent, Free for All, to all kinds of stuff. And I'd say, "Who played the solo on this track?" And, "Hey, who sang on this track?" And you go, "Yeah, this guy is dead, but he was replaced by this guy." And so it's nice to have a music historian in the, and he's 24, so he's got an old soul. He listens to all this old, kind of like Tom, you're talking about Jenna, kind of an old soul, going back and digging this stuff that we grew up on, and so it's cool when your kids have their own sort of voice, their own thoughts and everything, but they can kind of kick around and pal around with you too, especially with music. Yeah. It's cool when music brings us all together.
Yeah,
nice.
I know, David. I know you said you got to go, so we won't make you late for your next thing. But Rich,
thanks.
Let you kind of take our last word. But thank you so much, David. It's been an honor.
You're welcome. Awesome.
Great.
Tom will keep you entertained. I promise.
Thank you.
All right, guys. See ya.
Hi, Dave.
All right.
Yep.
Have a good night.
See ya.
All right. Yeah, Tom. You have a few more minutes. I mean, I know we said an hour, but
I do.
An hour.
I always got time for you guys. So if there's
Awesome.
anything we didn't already talk about last week, And again,
Right.
I want to give definitely props to everybody who works with us. Melody Myers, who does all of our artwork and design, and we have a great team of people, and it's a very small team, but that make this thing work and keep everything going. And between me and David and Melody, and again, we have a really cool support system of people that help. I mean, on the appearances on the surface, it's all me and David, but there's definitely some people like Melody behind the scenes that help make all this shit happen.
Very cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Rich. What do you got for Tom?
So Jason McMaster sang on the album, correct? One of the songs?
He did. No, he sang on 3. I think he sang on Free Will Burnin', and he sang on Eat the Rich and Riff Raff. So he actually sings the lead on Riff Raff. It's funny. I did it, and then he did it, and we were just going to kind of swap verses, and his was so cool. I'm like, fuck it, just let McMaster sing it. So I'm kind of the chorus with him going, Riff Raff, but that song is all pretty much Jason doing the leads. And yeah, he did some background stuff on Eat the Rich, which is pretty obvious. There's a couple parts where says something and it's just him, and Free Will Burnin'. So Jason's one of my dear friends. I fucking love Dangerous Toys. I always have. So it was so cool for me personally, collaborating with him and we've been friends for a long time. And he's like me. He's a big music fan. We always fanboy about shit. I mean, again, he's like me, and that's what's so cool. I grew up being a fan of his band, but now we're friends, and we fan, like when we did that show with KK Downing last year, he was just like, "Oh my God, I hate you." You know what I mean? It's like Judas Priest. So that's why it's so cool. And we did Free Will Burn. I'm like, "Hey, you want to sing on this with us?" And yeah, I did. I love Jason. And it's so funny enough, in Europe, the next single they're going to release is Riff Raff. They wanted, because, obviously there's a lot going on with AC/DC, and they really liked it. And I'm like, cool, man, let's give some love to my boy Jason,
Cool. Well, I was going to say that I mentioned him because I liked first two Dangerous Toys albums. So are they doing anything? Are they still active?
Yeah, they're active. They play a lot of shows. They've been active playing shows. I actually bugged Jason McMaster so much that they finally went in the studio last year or two, and we're working on writing a couple of songs. And who knows what's going to happen with it? But no matter what, I know I will always know I was the impetus behind bugging Jason McMaster so much that he finally wrote new Dangerous Toys songs. You know, so. And dude, for the record, I have the album cover from the first record tattooed on my leg. Like, that's how deep I am with the toys, man. And you know,
nice.
So.
Yeah, that's an iconic image. I mean, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Oh, it is, man. And but that record, that image. I mean, I love all the records, man. I love Pissed, which we actually did a limited edition reissue of a few years ago. And, you know, so and again, Jason has a ton of other bands, Evil United, Broken Teeth, which is awesome. That's the thing. Dangerous Toys doesn't write a lot or do a lot, but Jason has like 4 or 5 other projects that are fucking incredible, man. If you like Jason, you know, and we put out Evil United, their last record, Serpent, Igniter, Haunted by Rock and Roll is another amazing record that Jason sings on, Broken Teeth. Jason has so many cool projects, man.
All right.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah, I know we covered some of this last week, but it seems like the perfect segue. And let's geek out about some more of the awesome guest stars that you have. I mean, you mentioned, you know, Charlie Benante, and I don't think we geeked out too much about him. That guy helped literally introduce me to Judge Dredd and
oh man, me too. I told him that. We just had this conversation on text a couple weeks ago where I was like, dude, so who's the guy in Anthrax who's really like the pop culture guy and all the Stephen King shit and the comic book shit and the Mad Magazine shit? And he was like, me. And I'm like, dude, but literally, I told him, I said, dude, Anthrax. I mean, dude, Anthrax is kind of what got me into 70s Kiss. Anthrax is what got me into Judge Dredd. Like, it's funny, like I have an Anthrax Knotman sweatshirt that I wear everywhere I fucking go that Puck Hockey made for me. Like somewhere back there, I have the big, buried, but I have the big Mort Drucker poster. You can kind of see the corner of it behind the shocker, but I have the big Mort Drucker Anthrax poster with all of the cartoon drawing from State of Euphoria. But they did, man. I love Charlie and Anthrax. And it's so funny, Anthrax musically I love, but you're right. They were always the cool pop culture band that they did. They got me interested in Stephen King, and they got me interested in Judge Dredd and a lot of these things that they sang about and talked about and used in their imaging. And that's what's so cool. I mean, look, I love Anthrax. Being able to do stuff with Charlie, man, was so iconic. And Dave Lombardo plays on Riff Raff, which is amazing. Tesla, another one of my all-time favorite bands. Frank Hannon played on Wasted. Troy Luccketta played on Say What You Will. Mark Slaughter sang with me on Say What You Will. And again, Slaughter is another one of my all-time favorite bands. I mean, look, all these guys that I grew up just idolizing with posters of on my wall. And I, sadly enough, still have posters of them on my wall. But they're all my friends now. And to get to work with, I mean, Doro, Eddie Ojada's on the record, Dave McClain, you know, all these people, you know, Satchel from Steel Panther. I mean, who was formerly known as Russ Parrish, and you know, he played in Fight. We did a cover of Nailed to the Gun, and we got him to play on it. It's just some of the things I've been able to do on this record, man. It's like seriously, just such bucket list shit. You know, it's stuff that I would have never even fathomed to put on my bucket list. That now it's just like, fuck, man. You know, where do you go? The bar is too high. There's nowhere to go.
That's awesome. Yeah, go ahead, Rich. I have more follow-ups. But go ahead.
Okay. So I'm curious about the Nazareth song. You did Love Hurts, a ballad. Interesting.
We did. And Brandon Yeagley from Crowbot sings on it with me, man. You know, I did it, and it was awesome. But I have that, I mean, I have a really gruff voice kind of, but Brandon just put the right smooth Southern honey behind it, where our two, and he actually did some background vocals on Auf Wiedersehen too. Originally, he was going to be more present on Auf Wiedersehen with me, and him and Charlie are friends, so that's kind of how that came to be. He's like, dude, we should get, and I love Crowbot, and again, me and Brandon have become friends, and he's super cool. But Charlie was like, dude, we should get, and they did that, they did the Rush song together, you know, and then, you know, so we were like, so we originally were going to have him be a little more prominent on Wiedersehen, and then Al Jorgensen agreed to do it. So Brandon, he still has some kind of background vocals in the chorus, but really where he shines is on that Nazareth tune, man. Me and him, like that was one of the sleeper tracks from the record that I just love now that it's done and I listen to it. And that was David called me one night. We're balls deep in the record. I'm in my hotel in Madison tracking vocals. He goes, dude, we have to do Love Hurts. And I'm like, okay. And then, so we hit up Andy Martingeli, our guitar player in Italy. And the next day, literally the next morning, I got up to go in the studio and I had a mapped out version of the song that I sang my vocals to that day. And then we ended up asking Brandon to sing on it, and he did. And then Chuck Bueller did the drums on it from, obviously formerly of Megadeth, the drummer from So Far So Good, So What. And he played drums on the Motorhead song too. So it was so cool I love the Nazareth song. I love the way it turned out. And Brandon, man, he just brought so much to the table and kind of putting that smooth, again, his voice is like that smooth Southern honey that just makes it all come together, man.
Did you guys do it like the original, like a ballad?
Oh yeah, totally. Totally. Haven't you heard it? I sent you the record, didn't I?
No, we haven't heard it yet.
God, I'm such an asshole. I thought I sent you guys the record last week after we did this. I'll send you the SoundCloud link right now. Just right. you guys talk for a second so I can go do this so I don't forget.
All right, so Rich, how you doing? All right, awesome. Well, that is a great song. I'm looking forward to hearing.
Yeah, it is. But it's very shit. But yeah, look, it's very everything on this record is very faithful interpretations of the original song. I mean, look, some of it, Wasted, we put Def Leppard wasn't really doing the harmony thing yet, you know what I mean? But on Wasted, we kind of we kind of did more like a later Def Leppard song where we put in the harmonies and, some, a little bit of more modern. But these songs are like the Eat the Rich version we did with the Dead by Wednesday guys, who are Dave and Opus. They kind of are a backup band in America when we go out and tour. And so we did Eat the Rich with them. And originally they sent it to us. It was like down-tuned. And it was kind of like, no, dude, we made them go back in and record it like in standard tuning in E flat. Like all of this shit is really, I mean, like it's all pretty faithful. I mean, there's really, there's a cover on our real Ellefson record that I'm not going to talk about yet, but it's totally like an updated modern version. These are all pretty faithful to the original arrangements and the original tones and the original tracks. And we kind of insisted on that, man. This isn't like us trying to reimagine the songs or totally redo them. This was just us playing these songs the way they were supposed to be played and trying to do them as good as we can,
That's good. Yeah, sometimes not changing the original and staying faithful to it is it kind of breathes new life into the original version.
And it totally does, man, especially with the guests we have on this and the way we do. And I think my vocal performance, I sing lead on 15 of the 19 songs. One song, and there was a couple of songs that I was supposed to kind of trade off with them, and then I had my heart thing, and I just said, fuck, so Andrew Freeman from Last in Line sings on Over the Mountain, which again, I was going to do with them, and I just said, fuck it, we'll let Andrew sing it. It sounds good. Jimmy DeGrasso plays on that as well, which is super cool. And then Todd Kearns from Slash sings, we did Sweet F.A. by Sweet. And again, I just said kind of let Todd sing that. And then Chibs Enough actually does a track on the record. That's actually a hidden track. It's not. So again, but I sing on 15 of the 19 songs. Most of it, again, some of it like Sheer Heart Attack is kind of a duet with me and Doro, and Bumblefoot's real present in that one too with a lot of the harmonies. It's a Queen song, so it required a lot of vocals. And Auf Wiedersehen is obviously me and Al Jorgensen kind of trading verses, but a lot of the stuff, Wasp and Twisted Sister and a lot of the stuff is just me, man. And I really did my best to keep it as faithful to the originals, but we put a little stank on it. You know what I mean? My voice in some places is a little more aggressive. Like Nailed to the Gun's a perfect example. It sounds like the song, but honestly, it sounds a little heavier and a little more modern. And I'm a little little heavier than Rob Halford. So, but I mean, man, I really can't. I'm so excited about it. And even David has said to me so many times and said in interviews, this is the most fun record he's ever done and probably one of his favorite things he's ever done. I can't wait for people to hear it, man, and hold it in their hands. And I actually have it on vinyl. I got the test pressings last week, so I've been able to just sit and spin it on vinyl and listen to it actually as a record. And it's just so amazing now that I get to, with all the work, it just kind of becomes a blur and you're just like frantically running in place trying to get everything done. And now And then there comes a point where you can just sit back and put the record on your turntable and listen to it and just sit back and really enjoy it for what it is. And that's sort of where I am with it now, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. And, you know, I love that earlier you guys were talking about Ellefson too. No cover too. I'm already excited for it. So I want to,
right?
we're going to hold you to that.
Me too. But it's so funny. There is like a lot of this stuff. I mean, David chose a lot of these, or some of the artists were, you know, we both like, let's do a Def Leppard song. And then we just had a 5-minute conversation and got to Wasted. You know, some of it was like Love Hurts, where David just called me in the middle of that and said, dude, we have to do Love Hurts. I'm like, okay, you know what I mean? A lot of it's kind of from that era, like more the late 70s. And then we did Rebel Yell, which last year when we were on tour in Europe, we were all talking. We were originally, this all started because we were going to do some, you know, Japan loves B-sides. We were going to do a couple covers for the B-sides of the Japanese version of the Ellefson record. And then we just said, fuck it, let's do a cover record. We didn't want to put our real record out during the pandemic when we couldn't tour or do anything. So we pushed it back to next year and just did no cover. But again, something like Wasp was kind of me, you know what I mean? Wasp was kind of a contemporary to Megadeth. So that was kind of me going, dude, we have to do, you know, we did Love Machine, and I love Wasp, and David likes them, and we're, you know, it's huge respect for them. And I mean, just to me, they're one of the ultimate 80s, just aggressive. I mean, my voice, I owe so much to Blackie Lawless, man. And again, we did on that one, Dirk Verburen played drums on it. Dave Alvin from White Trash did some background vocal. Who, again, another one of my kind of favorite unsung 80s, 90s bands, White Trash. I thought they're amazing. I always loved Dave's voice. So again, there's all these fun Easter eggs, like getting Dave Alvin to sing background vocals on Love Machine. You know what I mean? It was so much fun.
Excellent. All right. Yeah, Rich, I don't want to step on you again like I did last week. Go ahead.
It's all right. Do you want to keep going? I know we're in a little over an hour now.
Yeah, I mean,
let's do one or two more questions. I'm fine. I got probably 10, 15 more minutes. Let's just do a couple final questions from each of you, and then we'll get out of here.
All right, that works for me. Yeah, I mean, yeah, we'll just do one or two more. And actually, if you have a question out there, feel free. You know, we've got a couple more minutes. So,
okay.
Shit, it just left my head. So actually, I'll just kind of, I'm looking around your room,
yes.
And I'm going to throw out a couple of requests then. So definitely, I'd love a Faith No More cover from you guys. And you're talking about Kiss, you know, yeah. So actually, I'll Faith No More would be great. And since you were talking about Kiss earlier, just thinking with the big bass sound of War Machine would be my request if you're going to do a Kiss song.
That would be great, man. I love what. Oh, it's so funny. I don't know if you know this, but we didn't announce it. But we did Beth on the record too. We actually, we were at the end, and we were like, dude. I called David, and David didn't even know. So I always loved Beth, but you know what? It's funny to me. I first heard the Eric Carr version on Smashes, Thrashes, and Hits. So, because again, I was born in '75, so that came out in, you know, the early to the mid '80s, and I you know, so again, my introduction to Kiss was '80s Kiss, and then I worked my way back. So I always fell in love with the Eric Carr version of that from Smashes, Thrashes, and Hits. So fast forward when we were working on this record, I just got a wild bug up my ass, and I just loved that song, and I loved singing that song. So I hit up Tyson Leslie, one of our friends, he does keys on the Nazareth song and some of the other stuff on the record, and he plays keys in Vixen and does Rare Hair and a bunch of other stuff in Nashville, a lot of jams. We did some stuff with him on the Mega Cruise. Totally cool guy, and we love him. We did a whole show in Nashville at the Rockin' Pod Expo last year, the year before, with him and his whole kind of jam crew. It was awesome. So I hit him up. I said, hey, can you do an arrangement of Beth for me? 2 hours later, I had it. I just kind of sang a rough over it and sent it to Dave and said, I didn't tell you about this. What do you think of this? He called me and went, oh my fucking God. And then I went in the studio and I tracked it, and he called me. He's like, dude, it made me cry. He's like, I can't even believe it. And again, so it's just really cool. And I've always related to that song, especially now. I'm always gone. I'm always kind of gone from my kids. And it's hard, man. You asked before, and it's hard on a family when you have a family and kids and girlfriends and wives to go out and do this and be apart from them. And to me, that song really always spoke to that. And that's kind of why we did it. And when it was done, I sent it to David. He was like, oh my God, it made me cry. And again, it kind of has that effect on me. It's just really such a personal. So I was kind of like, what do you think of this? We don't have a Kiss song. And he's like, brilliant. So that was the thing. I was looking at the end, we were pretty much done, and we didn't have a Kiss song. And I'm like, what a weird thing to run out of left field. Let's do Beth. So we did. And I think I think it's really cool. And I think we pulled it off, and I really love it. I'm excited for people to hear it.
All right. All right, great. Yeah, all right, Rich, why don't you ask the last question, and then Tom, we'll let you have the last word, and then if you got like 2 minutes, we'll end the broadcast, and we'll bend your ear for 2 more minutes when we're done.
I
But
do.
yeah,
Okay. So after you do these few live shows, would you guys consider doing something virtual in the future?
Yeah, we've talked about it. We actually talked about maybe doing something even during this tour. I have a friend, the studio I go record at, Madtown Mix in Madison. He has a really great facility. My buddy Matt will plant, and there's another gentleman named Dale who owns the facility, and they have a whole stage set up and cameras. And we actually talked about doing something. And originally, the weekend before these Midwest shows, we were going to go to Iowa and do 3 virtual shows at the Surf Ballroom, where Buddy Holly and the Big Bopper and Richie Valens played their last show, and the Rooftop Garden, which was another venue that was real instrumental for David. We were actually going to do 3 of them, but then we just kind of ran out of time to set it all up. So I think in the spring we're going to go back and do those things with our friends at the Iowa Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Iowa, who are great to us. They inducted David a couple of years ago. We actually went and they do a Battle of the Bands competition every year, and me and David went one year, and we were kind of the judges and the special guests when they inducted David. So, yeah, but absolutely, at some point, I mean, look, if there's, a want for it and a demand, I mean, sure, we'd do it. But right now, we're going to just go out and do these and have fun and hopefully get back out next year. This year we had Australia and Japan tours that got pushed back. We had a European tour for next year that got pushed back. So, I mean, again, we're kind of working around Megadeth, and the cool thing is right now, the only thing that can work, small stuff and smaller club stuff is going to pick back up before arena stuff. So, I mean, I think, look, Megadeth has some downtime, so we're just going to take as full advantage as we can of that time with not only recording records and releasing records, but playing shows and touring and doing whatever we can, man. It's been, for the last couple of years we did this, we always have to work around Megadeth, who are one of the hardest working bands in show business, and they're always on tour and always have stuff going on. And I mean, look, the Megadeth tour getting canceled this year is the only reason that afforded us and Megadeth to be on tour right now. We wouldn't have made no cover. We wouldn't have been able to do any of this stuff. So, I mean, in ways as shitty as the lockdown's been, it's been kind of a blessing for us artistically and creatively, and to be able to do some of these things that we normally wouldn't be able to do in a Megadeth year,
Yeah. Understand. Yeah, it makes sense.
All right. Well, yeah, I'm going to say again, thank you, Rich. Thank you to David Ellefson. Thank you, Thom Hazaert. It's been thank you so much for coming back. Yeah.
Yes. For part 2.
Thank you out there for watching. Yeah, thanks for coming back. I know, Tom, why don't you take us out?
And everybody start submitting your ideas for no cover 2.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. Well, there you go. Tom, you want to take us out with anything really deep and profound?
Man,
put you on the spot. Totally put you on the spot.
Deep and profound. That's awesome.
Take us out with that.
That was a great mag.
It was. And little did I know, someday when I had this magazine when I was 14, this headline would be so central to my life, man. The politics of Megadeth, man. I love it. And again, I want to thank everybody. And again, it's such an honor to, again, David and everybody I work with and all the fans and everybody who's been so cool and supported No Cover and, you guys and everybody, man. It's so great to be able to do this stuff and go out and talk about the stuff. And again, just genuinely share, me and David do this all out of just a genuine love of rock and roll, man. And that's where I come from. That's where David comes from. And it's so cool to be able to take and manifest that into something we can, hold in our hands and put on a sticker and stick on your car. You know what I mean? Like, to me, it's so cool to just be able to, all this stuff we've done, just be able to manifest it into something real. Awesome. So hopefully that was profound enough.
That's deep. That's heavy.
Works for me.
I did it.
Yep.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah. Well, in the broadcast, and thank you.
See you next time.
Yeah, see you next week, Tom. I'm kidding.
You will. You better be at our in-store in Phoenix. I will see you next week.
Yeah. This will be me with the mask on.
Hey, well, this will be me with the mask on, but I'll be easy to spot.
All right, yeah. All right, and everybody go out to check out all the shit, the stuff in Texas, the stuff all the Midwest. So, all right, man. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. See you next time.